So I'm Trip Funderburk. I'm the manager. We're going to hear from Ernst, our scientist, and Layla, who you just met. And we have two great speakers, Ernst Noyons from Bonaire and Sue Spielman from the Circle of Dreams, who's been a big supporter of ours. And we'll have some Q&A, as Layla mentioned. I'm honored that we have celebrities in our attendees. My mentor, Ken Niedermeyer, is here. And anyway, Ken can't speak. But anyway, I'm glad to see him and Francesca. Anyway, it's great to see people from all over the history of Reef Renewal. So thanks for coming. All right, so I've been the manager here for 4 years. Before that, I worked on 2 coral restoration projects in Roatan, Honduras. And before that, I was in Florida working with Ken Niedermeyer. We were trying to figure out how to replicate the success that Ken had done in the Florida Keys and throughout all of the Florida Keys with 7 different nurseries, and we tried to share that with other islands in the Caribbean. Before that, I spent 25 years in Washington, D.C. as a Hill staffer and a lobbyist, and I'm very happy that I left that world. In 2013, my family and I went to St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and my dad and I love Jacques Cousteau, and we saw tons of fish and coral when I was a kid, and we jumped in at St. Croix, and there was a bunch of dead elkhorn coral, and it was a graveyard, and it broke my heart, and I wanted to find out what happened to the coral, and I read about a group in Florida that grew coral in the nursery and planted it back on the reef, so I went and sat on the front row and kind of was a stalker of Ken Niedermeyer until he finally hired me. So anyway, thanks to Ken and for introducing me to this obsession. So today we're celebrating World Wildlife Day. This is a day that the CITES Treaty was signed so that we cannot trade in endangered species. There are several corals that are on the CITES list that we work with here in Curacao. Today, we're going to really share the successes we've had and the challenges we've had and our plans for the future, but we're also trying to raise funds. So there is a donor box link that is in the chat. And if your heart grabs you, we'd love to have more donations to help support this work. So Reef Renewal Curacao is a small organization. We have 2 staff. That's me and my wingman, Ernst, who is a scientist and has the energy of 10 people, which is lucky. So we have a lot of work to do, and Ernst's in the water 2 or 3 times a day, maybe more, and sometimes at night. We really have learned how to leverage our interns. The Reef Renewal was founded by Jeremiah Peak and Paul Bosch 10 years ago. And we had a great board member, Lorraine Schenk, who is very plugged into the local government and helped us get our permits. And unfortunately, Lorraine passed away last year. So today is a tribute to Lorraine, and we're going to plant coral in her honor. And we appreciate her service for Reef Renewal Curacao, and we miss her. And then there's our advisor, Ken Niedermeyer. Ken's always available when I have questions or we need some advice, and we appreciate his guidance. Pretty much everything we do, we learn from Ken, and so thank you, Ken, for all your assistance over the years. All right, so it was suggested that we not start going into jargon and about coral and actually explain what a coral is. So a coral is an animal, and it lives in the ocean. It's sessile. It attaches itself to the ocean floor. It lives in symbiosis with the tiny algae. And as the coral grows, it lays down calcium carbonate or limestone. So these tiny little creatures, they become 1 polyp, and then that polyp becomes 2, and then they subdivide until they have a coral colony. And a bunch of coral colonies get together and form a reef, and then this reef can form Florida. So the Great Barrier Reef seen from space was formed by these tiny polyps that are little coral animals. Um, so they're simple creatures, but they are vital and they form an entire ecosystem. And it's interesting that they have this symbiotic partnership where they get 80% of their food and energy through their symbiotic algae. They're related to jellyfish and sea anemones since they have tentacles that can capture some prey for the other part of their diet. As you can see, it's a simple creature. It has a mouth and a stomach. And the important thing is that as it grows, it lays down calcium carbonate or limestone. So this is the architect of coral reefs. And corals are white unless they have their symbiotic partner, and this tiny algae lives in its tissue. And unfortunately, when the conditions in the ocean become too hot or too cold or too much salinity, for whatever reason, the coral or the algae decide their relationship isn't working, and the algae leaves the coral, and the coral becomes bleached. That doesn't mean that coral is dead, but that coral is stressed and it's lost its primary food source. So that's what we read about a lot in the paper about coral bleaching, and unfortunately, it is a reality. And mainly the bleaching is caused by hotter oceans caused by climate change. So why are coral reefs important? So corals are 1/10 of 1% of the ocean, but 25% of all marine life spends part of its life on the coral reef. They're vital for the economies of small countries throughout the tropics, and important for providing livelihoods in tourism and fishing. They protect us from 97% of wave energy during storms. They prevent erosion, and they're beautiful, and they're important culturally, and we are losing them. So we are fighting hard here in Curacao to learn how to protect and restore coral reefs, and people throughout the globe are joining us in this effort. The Caribbean's had some tough challenges. We have rising temperatures. We've had 3 major disease epidemics, and then we have human impacts. We're catching too many fish. We're not doing enough to treat the sewage that we dump back into the ocean. There's too much destructive development that tears down the trees and the seagrasses and the mangroves. Wherever man goes, we're just not treating the reefs very well. But the Caribbean really suffered from these disease epidemics, and staghorn and elkhorn are now critically endangered species. This shows that temperatures are getting hot. Corals live in this happy temperatures between 70 and 85 degrees, and we've just increased global temperatures 1.5 degrees Celsius or 2.8 Fahrenheit, and now the corals get in an uncomfortable hot weather pattern too often, and we've had 4 or 5 global bleaching events. It's almost become a regular event. 2024 was the worst bleaching event in Curacao history. We lost about half of our elkhorn coral. Last year was a cooler year, and our corals grew great. So this is a problem facing all coral reefs around the world. We want to be straightforward and tell you the challenges, but also there's a happy story attached to this. So the 3 epidemics in the Caribbean, we had white band disease that killed 98% of the staghorn and elkhorn coral in the 70s and 80s. We still don't know what caused it. It's just this white plague that would knock out these important branching corals. In 1983, a disease came out of the Panama Canal, and in 1 year wiped out all the sea urchins from Brazil to Bermuda. And the sea urchin, nobody liked them. They all got stuck. And when they died, the reef started to get more algae, more macroalgae. And we realized we were missing our primary herbivore. So we need to protect the others, like the parrotfish. So Caribbean reefs are having a real battle between coral domination and algae domination. Big reason because we lost our sea urchin. And now we had even a really terrible disease that started in Florida in 2014, and it impacted Roatan when I was there in 2020, and it got to Curacao in 2024. Pretty awful disease that kills 25 of the 60 Caribbean coral species. A little lesion will form on a coral and kill it within a month. So Those of us that work in coral restoration, we have to really work on our mental health because it's a challenge. We've seen some really nasty stuff, but we are still fighting hard to protect the reefs that we love. In Florida, Ken Niedermeyer used to see 60% coral cover with staghorn everywhere, and largely due to white band disease. On the right, you'll see a picture of what a lot of Florida looks like, the bones of staghorn coral. Now we're to a happy point, aren't we glad? Enough negativity. So the positive story here is that we still have some survivors of staghorn, and we could take a small piece of staghorn coral that is meant to fragment and put a 10-centimeter piece into a tree. And on the right, you see it, the same tree 1 year later. This is in Mystique and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So usually in the coral courses, people always gasp and say, wow, and get excited. So I'm guessing everybody's doing that now. Anyway, okay. This is thanks to our friends from Bonaire. They put some tiny elkhorn corals on the reef, about the size of a mouse and a computer. 2 years later, you'll see them start to sprout up. And then 3 years, they're getting pretty big, and 4 years. And then in 10 years, you get a monster. So these processes work, and we just need to get faster and better at doing it. We're really good at growing staghorn and elkhorn. The boulder corals are harder. So Ken came down and taught us how to do this 2 years ago, and we went to a seminar in Bonaire where Ernst and his team showed us how to work with the boulder corals. So we're in the early stages, but this is an important aspect of our program to get better and faster at growing the boulder corals. Okay, how do we restore coral? We put small corals in a tree, what we call a coral tree. And then after they get big, we take them and attach them to some bamboo that we have suspended up in the air on some rebar rods. And then after about 1.5 years or 2 years, the coral gets giant and the bamboo erodes and the coral falls into the sand, and we have restored a reef. And it's working very well here. We're working on some new techniques to get better and faster. We always want to improve. So this is just an idea to show you how this can work. When I first got here, we had a group that wanted to give us a donation, and I thought, okay, what if we built them their own reef? We're going to make 25 structures and put 20 corals on each structure, and they're from Utah. We're going to call it the Utah Reef. So we found an empty spot at Mambo Beach, and then we started putting in some tables, and we put coral on the tables, and then in 8 months, they were getting really big, and then the group came to see their corals and were very excited and dropped off their check. And then they came the next year and the corals were even bigger, and we got a bigger check. And then just recently we took this picture. So here's a reef we created in less than 3 years. And there's tons of life. There's tons of fish hanging out down in this restored reef. So our friends in Colorado heard about the Utah Reef, and they had state pride, and Sue Spielman invested in the Colorado Reef. So we built 25 structures, and this is a photo mosaic that we did of the original outplants to show the beginning of the project. We can take GoPro cameras and swim over the reef, and then a computer program can stitch it together and make these 3D models. And this is going to be the future of our monitoring processes. So there's the beginning of the Colorado Reef, and then you'll see the corals on the bamboo structures are growing. And then this is a video from the other day. That's the Utah Reef, and there's the Colorado Reef. So, if anybody else has some state pride and wants to invest in their state reef, we're happy to help them do that. Other examples of how this works, I think our board members, Jeremiah and Paul, built these 8 or 10 years ago. And then you can see on the right, you can see the big coral structure, and just there's coral everywhere out at Mambo Beach. It might be one of the most restored reefs in the Caribbean, along with our friends in Bonaire, of course. Here's another 8 years ago, and now there's coral everywhere. I really encourage people to come see our restored reef at Mambo Beach. It'll do your heart good. Things are working, and it's incredibly successful and thriving. So this year we put out a annual report to capture some of the growth and give a better financial picture of us as an organization as we grow. And this year was the theme of expansion. We expanded from 4 nurseries, and we built 2 new nurseries on the West Coast at Playa Coqui with Go West Divers and at Casabao with Bee Diving. So now we have 6 nurseries, and we're planning to put 2 more in, and probably a third with working with the Marine Park and our friend Kelly from React. So that's a big growth to go from 4 to 6, and we also increased the genetics in our nursery. So it's really important as corals are stressed that we find the healthiest and broadest selection of genetics. So hopefully we can find some heat tolerant species. So Jeroen Schneider and our interns have been incredibly busy building these new nurseries, scouting for new genotypes, and we're really proud that we've expanded our work. We now have 87 coral trees. We used 1,000 scuba tanks last year, and we have 2 employees, and we have an intern team that really is the key to our success. So I have talked too much. Sorry about that. And now I want to turn over our presentation to Jeroen Schneider. He's the restoration coordinator and heads up our science program and manages our interns. And he can sort of explain why increased genetic diversity is important.
All right.
Thanks, Trip. I will just share my screen. Do you guys see this? I'm just gonna... Is it online? Do you see it?
Yes.
All
All right. Thank you, Trip, for that introduction to corals and what we do at Reef Renewal. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Jeroen Schneider. I'm the Research and Restoration Coordinator at Reef Renewal. And I've been working here for about a year, and prior to that, I worked as a research assistant at Secor, and I did some work with Kamabi too. So I've been very involved in this system, and I guess over the years that I was on this island, I have learned a little bit about this ecosystem and about how to do restoration. And from my experience, I will kind of tell you what I feel like restoration means, because I've seen let me see, I've seen these guys when I first got here, and I guess a year after I did a lot of spawning dives, and I spawned on these particular individuals. And when you do spawning dives, you stare at them for a longer period during the night, and you get really close to them. And all of a sudden, they started to get sick, and they all died, and it vanished. And it was like a real harsh thing for me personally. And it's really hard to then keep on holding on to this hope, right? Like, where is the reef going in these times? Not only that, I also saw a lot of wastewater treatment being unfiltered getting onto the reef, and overfishing. Like back in the day, we used to fish all the predators, and now that they're gone, we're starting to shift towards the parrotfish. And I guess the biggest one of all, Trip told you guys about this already, is bleaching. This is a picture I took 2 years ago in 2024, the hottest year in Curacao. And just to make you guys not too depressive, but these corals all are not with us anymore. They all died. And then that is very hard on you as a person, and also as an organization that is focusing on restoring these corals. So then how do you plant trees in a burning forest? Because that's essentially what we're doing, right? The oceans are in fact not going to get colder. Arguably, they're going to get warmer. The ocean is going to get more acidic. So this environment is changing, and how can we help these coral change with the environment? Well, before I get too depressive, I think this is where we come in, or I come in, because swimming over this patch of beach corals, I also saw these guys, and this is like the new generation of Palmaras, and they did not seem to care much about the heat. They were just growing, flourishing, and I guess there were not a lot of them, but they were there. And I guess we kind of skewed up this plan. Okay, well, you have this new generation that went through natural selection. Their parents were probably able to reproduce, so they are probably have some stronger resistance against these squirrels. So, like, why don't we collect them and bring them together and create these populations where they can reproduce again? Because right now we see that these squirrels that are surviving are too far from each other. So we collect them, we put them in the tree, and like Trip said, this is like a very effective way to increase biomass, and that's what you do. And then we outplant them, and then you get something like this, a nice, beautiful, healthy coral that, potentially, hopefully, can be more resistant against the heat. But I don't know if there's any biologist in this room, but there's something else going on here, right? It's not as simple as just selecting these corals and outplanting them. What we see here is a healthy pomara, but we see all these white little dots, and these white little dots, they come from a fish called a damselfish, and they basically harm the coral by eating away on their polyps. And while the coral restores itself, it starts eating on it again. This way it creates like a little algal lawn which they feed upon. So yeah, we see this huge bloom of coral predators at this moment. This is probably directly linked to the overfishing issue we're seeing on the island. So especially the snails and the fireworms are like on the lower tier of the food web, and they don't have any natural predators anymore. So they sort of have this free range. And also the damselfish, like back in the day, we used to have two damselfish every 100 meters, and now we see about 100 damselfish every 2 meters. And it has an effect on our outplant and our corals. So I guess we started this project where we kind of like, okay, we have this issue. These guys are eating away on our outplants, as you can see here. So how can we kind of use the ecosystem to fight off these fish? So what we did is we thought of a system with a cousin of the damselfish, the bicolored damselfish. Those are two different species, and they have different ecological niches. Basically, the one eats algae and they eat away on the coral, and the other one eats plankton, and they are colonial. So they basically create this little colony where they grow, and they protect their little colony, and they're as territorial as the algal farming one. So if you can attract this territory and basically create this territory where this bicolor will protect it and outplant corals on that, will it fend off the damselfish that will eat the coral? So this is what we did. We made all these plots, seeing if a bicolor gets attracted, and little did we know, lots of fish bicolors got attracted by it, and they established these colonies. Over time, they got bigger and they got more aggressive, so we decided to put corals on there. And right now we have outplanted corals on these rubble patches with little guards, basically biological guards to protect our corals. We are still busy with this project, so we're still ongoing, but it seems to be very, very promising. And this is just an example of one of the things we try to manipulate to help the corals flourish, because just by simply outplanting alone, you won't be successful. And I think if we then preserve what we still have and what's out there and bring those genotypes together and kind of use this ecological approach of conservation, we can be more successful while we still have time for management, like overfishing and wastewater treatment, to catch up with the system. And yeah, and then you can get something like this. And this picture was taken in January, so after the two bleaching events, and this is one of our outplants. It's me swimming over it. As you can see, it looks healthy, it looks beautiful, there's lots of fish. So yeah, this picture alone shows to me that there is still hope, right? There is still something going on, and there's still something we can do. But only if we help the coral. I'm taking away snails over here, and I think that is the reason why we can be so successful, right? We're kind of, basically, we are gardeners of our outplants. And I think that is kind of the note where I want to leave it. You guys is this kind of like still hopefulness in this system. If there's any questions, then feel free to ask them. I can answer them afterwards, or you can always email me or whatever you want to talk about. For now, I'm gonna give the platform to Leila. She's gonna talk about. She's my intern. She's been helping me with all these projects, and yeah, she's gonna talk about her experience. So Leila, up to you.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen again. All right, can everyone see the slide that says interning with Reef Renewal Foundation Curacao? Awesome. I appreciate the emojis, you guys. So I already introduced myself, but I'll reintroduce. My name is Leila Salentic. I am an intern here at Reef Renewal Foundation Curacao. I arrived here in late September and I leave in March 26th. So I'm in my last month, which is very sad. Time flew by. But I'm looking forward to speaking with all you guys today. Glad I can make this webinar before heading out. But before I jump into my internship, I wanted to give a little more background information on myself. I am coming from the States. I was born and raised in San Francisco, California. This is a picture from my graduation with my mom, dad, and brother. My mom and dad still live in San Francisco. My brother's in Utah. I got open water certified at a very young age, about 10 years ago, with the rest of my family. So I give a lot of credit to my parents for inspiring my love of the ocean and marine science, because I really made sure I had those immersive marine experiences from a young age. In 2024, I got my rescue diver and AAUS scientific diver certifications while taking a course at the University of Washington. And then worked for about a year with a laboratory up in Friday Harbor as a diver and an undergraduate researcher with sunflower sea stars. And then in June of 2025, I graduated with my Bachelor of Science and I moved here shortly after. So this is my first gig post-college and a pretty sweet one. And then I'll be looking to go back to grad school in the next few years. So good segue into my main talking point today, which is what I do here at Reef Renewal Curacao as an intern. I wear quite a few hats, which is probably my favorite thing about this internship, how dynamic it is, how many different skills I get to develop and things I get to do. But most of those tasks can be divided into two kind of main categories. And the first is research and restoration, and the second is outreach. So research and restoration, it's going to be a lot of time in the water, a lot of field work, doing things such as nursery maintenance. So going out, removing disease from our corals, repairing any broken structures, new buoys, all that good stuff. Fragmenting corals. This is, Trip already talked about this, but this is the main form of reproduction, coral reproduction that we are taking advantage of in our restoration. So we take a coral, we cut it into smaller pieces, we rehang those pieces, and we let them grow out. So I do a lot of coral fragmentation. Coral outplanting using tables, using cement, and some other novel methods. Predator control, removing snails, fireworms, and damselfish off of our restored reef. Long-term monitoring of our outplants using photomosaics and such, and field research and experimentation, which I'm going to get into a little bit more on the next slide. On the outreach side of things, I am involved in nursery tours and info sessions, so that includes scuba nursery tours and weekly snorkel tours with Lions Dive guests. Lions Dive is a resort where we have our office. Volunteer days, we try and do volunteer days once a month on the weekends. It's a great way to connect with the local community. We also do some volunteer events with schools and other nonprofits. And then photography, social media, and other forms of outreach. I mentioned how I do a lot of research and experimentation. This has definitely been my favorite part of the internship. So I want to take a moment here to highlight the 4 research projects that I have been involved with in my time. The first is the ARC, which you can see here. The ARC is this 2-layer pentagonal structure, and it's suspended at about 45 feet, 15 meters of depth, which is why this photo is very blue. There's no white balance on there yet. We have noticed that corals recruit naturally at quite an impressive rate to this structure. So we go out every month or so and count all of the new recruits and take pictures of them and catalog them. We're also using the structure as an outplant site. There have been some studies showing that the coral microbiome is much healthier in this mid-water column. And the idea is just behind that is that there's just fewer pathogens and harmful bacteria in this water column where there's lots of current than on the benthic seafloor where corals naturally grow. So we're taking some of our critically endangered corals that have been struggling with disease and putting them out on this structure. And so far they're doing quite well. So that's been exciting to catalog and witness. Our second project is the damsel dome. So Yudun talked about this a little bit already, but essentially using nature to assist natural processes and species interactions to assist our restoration efforts. In particular, with this project using bicolor damselfish to keep away farming damselfish. So we have these rubble patches that were already colonized by bicolors, and then we outplanted staghorn coral on top of them. And every week, sometimes every 2 weeks, I go out and I take a clipboard and I note every fish species that I can find in each of these rubble patches. And we're just monitoring how that fish assemblage changes over time and how settlement differs between these kind of interesting outplanted sites on top of the rubble versus a normal outplant site. Damselfish removal has been a big project that I've participated in. We are removing these harmful farming damselfish from certain areas of our reef and then tracking several different variables, including coral growth, health, fish assemblage, grazing behavior, sleeping fish in the removal sites versus our controls. And already the data is looking really exciting, very promising, that there's more grazing and definitely healthier corals in areas that we're removing these harmful fish. So that takes up at least a few dives a week, including some night dives. And then the last project was the Whedon project, which was funded by the Whedon grant, in which we collected 20 new Acropora genotypes. And I was here for about 15 of those new genotypes. So that project involved a lot of scouting dives, collection dives, where we literally go out with like a chisel and a hammer and pliers, cut corals, put them in our baskets, and then we take them to our nursery refragment and hang them. And then we go back and we check up on those corals which we've borrowed from to make sure they're healing up all right. As you can probably understand by now, this internship has been very hands-on and very intensive. And because of that, I feel I've developed numerous different skills, scientific skills that I will carry forward into my career and into grad school. And I just wanted to highlight those skills. So here are a few: scientific inquiry, experimental design, data analysis, and interpretation. These all are related to these research projects we're doing. In order to do research, you have to ask a question. And then you have to design an experiment, and then you have to keep reevaluating those methods and redesigning your experiment and adjusting accordingly. And then you have to take your data and you need to organize and analyze and interpret it. And obviously I did a little bit of that in my university, but it's been really exciting and really valuable to get consistent experience with these things. Species identification. I arrived in the Caribbean knowing very few species. I come from cold water kelp ecosystems. So coral was something I had learned about in a classroom setting, but not something I had tons of experience, hands-on experience with. So since arriving here, I can now name most hard coral species that I see, and a good number of fish. And that is always a valuable skill if you're a scientist. You need to be able to know and name and what you're seeing. Adaptive management, especially in ecology, we work with the natural environment, and the nature does not care about our science rules. And so we are constantly having to change our methods, our restoration methods, our research methods to adapt to a changing environment. And it's been exciting to see that in real time. Stakeholder and community engagement. I talked about volunteer days, our snorkel tours. There are a lot of different ways in which we are engaged with the community and with different types of communities as well. And it's been very interesting to see how we engage with those different peoples. For example, how we talk to scientists versus how we talk to like a local school that's visiting and explain what we're doing. Computer literacy, I'm in the water a ton, but I do spend some time in the office as well, doing data analysis, interpretation, and organization. And that requires things like Excel and R, which are not programs I love working with, but are important to work with. And so I appreciate the mentorship of Jeroen and learning these tools better. And then lastly, scientific communication, and that can look like social media, that can look like papers, photography, various forms of scientific communication. So I just want to finish on a personal note and just say how grateful I am for this internship. It can be a little bit depressing to work with corals at times. You are seeing, like Jeroen said, in real time, the reefs dying off, but you're also seeing all these incredible efforts to save corals, and many of them quite successful. And so I find a lot of hope in the work that we're doing, and in the passion and the intelligence of the scientists and restoration folks around me. And every day I am so excited to get in the water and work with these magnificent creatures. So shout out to Reef Renewal Foundation, of course, and also Circle of Dreams. Circle of Dreams funds this internship, so I wouldn't be here without your funding. Thank you, thank you. And in fact, with that, I'm going to pass the microphone over to Sue Spielman, who is here from Circle of Dreams, and she's going to talk a little bit about her foundation and the importance of funding internships like this one. So give me 1 sec, Sue. I'm going to mute myself and stop sharing.
Sure. I'll just start talking while you're getting it done. How's that?
You should be good.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Sue Dreamweaver Spielman, and I am honored to be here with you today for the World Wildlife Day on behalf of myself and Jeannie Jambor. We're the co-founders of the Circle of Dreams Foundation, and it's great to be able to stand alongside Reef Renewal, Curacao, and the great work that we've been doing that you've been listening to. I'm here as both a diver who's witnessed the damage being done to the reefs around the world due to the climate change and the warming oceans, but also as a longtime supporter of Reef Renewal Curacao. And today's events continue to remind us of why we all do what we do. I'd like to share with you just a little bit about our foundation and why we founded it in 2021, as well as how we got involved with TRIP and all the work that's going on at Reef Renewal. Circle of Dreams Foundation exists to help support organizations that nurture connections to nature's commons. Now, nature's commons is all that we share. It's the clean air, it's the fresh water, resilient oceans, healthy forest. Basically, nothing else can exist, let alone thrive without these fundamentals. So we champion organizations around the world to care for the planet's ecosystems and build community and take action that makes tomorrow healthier than today. We really believe that communities flourish when people feel connected to the land, or in this case, the oceans, to purpose and to each other. And that connection is exactly why all of us are taking time out of our day today to be here with Reef Renewal, our common love of nature and the oceans. So Jeannie and I met Trip back in 2019 while we were diving in Roatan, and we decided to add to our specialty certs, and we took the coral restoration course, and Trip was our instructor, and we learned a whole lot about how amazing the corals are, how to create and prep the staghorn fragments, outplanting and cleaning the coral trees, everything that's been talked about so far. And immediately we felt how dedicated he was to the project, and that enthusiasm. Had dinner with him to hear more about what his vision was, Reef Renewal. And this discussion was about how to get it off the ground or off the ocean floor. And Jeannie and I felt that with our entrepreneurial backgrounds, we could help in a number of ways. So as we do with most of the organizations that we partner with, we all brainstormed some metrics and came up with a plan, which kicked off the intern program back in 2022. That first year, we helped with the goal of supporting a lot of the in-water activities like Layla was talking about, helping with the materials, and the goal was to have 1,000 corals outplanted back on the reef, as well as do some education and training for the early marine biology graduates through the paid internship programs. Well, that year, there were over 30 rote nurses and research projects. More volunteers participated and some new dye shop partners came on board. Frankly, we were blown away by how much was able to get done with this initial grant. We continued granting year over year, each year more progress being made. 6 paid interns, undergrads, graduates, each of those interns were lasting 4 months or more. In 2025, there were 10 paid internships. And among a lot of the other accomplishments, like Layla has been talking about, collecting new genotypes, installing new home nurseries, a lot of this was made possible with that fundamental support for the intern program. So all of these years of work have been paying off, and Reef Renewal now has what they believe is the largest restored staghorn reef in the Caribbean. So bravo to that. That's a major accomplishment. And even though I'm in Colorado today talking to you, which happens to be a landlocked state, you know, as you saw in Trip's photos, the Colorado Reef Nursery is doing great. And as most things worthwhile, it took a lot of hard work and persistence on the part of the Reef Renewal team and to get the group of interns on board and successfully manage them. So I truly hope that everyone that's been involved with Reef Renewal on this journey over the years, and many of you might be listening today, are as proud of the work that they've accomplished as we are proud of them. We feel really strongly at Circle of Dreams that it's important to get folks involved with projects like this so they can learn and study and spread the love of the healthy oceans to others. And that spirit deeply aligns with our foundation's mission of strengthening community through shared purpose. They've grown this intern program over the years, and we've been honored to support it since the beginning. It's a successful stewardship model because it embodies what we value most at Circle of Dreams, which is partnership, accountability, and hands-on impact. Everyone at Reef Renewal works tirelessly in many ways with some of the allied organizations, governmental agencies, local partners. They're out there monitoring the ecosystems every day, providing the scientific research that's being used worldwide, sharing reports and their learnings. And just to make sure that the reefs around the world might have a chance of surviving our warming oceans. And, this isn't in theory, like this is in practice. As everyone's been saying today, they're out on dives every day. This is what leadership looks like. This is what stewardship looks like. This is what a community of like-minded individuals from around the world can get done. And I really believe stories like this need to be told, because witnessing the courage and the care and the commitment behind this work inspires you to join in. So even if you're not a diver, the ocean plays a critical role for both survival and resilience. It affects living on the planet. Under TRIP's leadership, the Reef Renewal continues to have a strong vision, and they really need your commitment in helping them continue with this work. Protecting the oceans and the coral reefs is not only a responsibility, but it's a lifestyle of passion. And when communities unite, they have the power to shape the future. And this is exactly why the Circle of Dreams Foundation continues to support the Reef Renewal with our annual grants. We feel it's not just necessary, but it's important to be part of the community and helping with the resources needed for all the work in 2026. So today, I'd love to invite you to take the next step, whether that's donating towards today's fundraising goal, getting a coral restoration dive cert, cleaning the trees, or simply sharing this message, because your participation and involvement keeps this collective dream for the return of healthy return coral reefs alive, and ensures that organizations like Reef Renewal Curacao can continue this invaluable work. Right now, you can double your donation impact, and I'm going to surprise Trip here because we have not talked about this. In addition to our yearly intern program grant that we make, Circle of Dreams is going to be matching up to $1,500 for the donations made during this webinar. So please click the link, whatever side of the screen it's on, and let's try and hit today's 20,000 fundraising goal. So on behalf of and Jeannie Jambor and the Circle of Dreams Foundation, thanks so much for allowing me to collaborate with you on this event today. It's great to be here with you and hear everything that's going on. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Trip.
Sue, that was awesome, and thanks for your continued generosity and to challenge the group. Yeah, I'm glad you were able to take my course in Roatan and support us for all these years and give us that good message today. So thanks for being a good friend. Next up is Ernst. I'm sorry to keep you waiting, Mr. Noyons, but last but not least, Ernst is leading the team in Bonaire. And as I mentioned earlier, they got started about 3 years earlier than Reef Renewal Curacao. And we have learned that following the lead of Reef Renewal Bonaire is a smart move. So they have 16 dive shops all working together. We're moving up to 6. So we basically copy you, Ernst, and that is a sign of our appreciation and envy, or no, I guess admiration is the better word. And we were really grateful when you invited us to come over to Bonaire, and you organized a really fantastic seminar for a couple of groups around the Caribbean. So sorry to take your time, but thank you for being here, and let us know about how you put together such an impactful seminar. Thank you.
Thank you, Trip. Thank you for the always kind words and always saying you want to copy us. It is it's an honor, and thank you for having us here. Also, congratulations on organizing this great webinar. I think it's turning out great, and some very good news from Sue from the Circle of Dreams Foundation. So everyone go donate. I've been following your work for quite some time now, and really the last year I've seen great improvement and great growth and scale and impact, and it's really nice to see the growth happening over there and that momentum that I see on in the Curaçao's reefs. So a little bit about myself and about Reef Renewal Curacao. So I work for Reef Renewal Bonaire. I'm the COO here at Reef Renewal Bonaire, and of course there's a big similarity between us because we have the same name. But not only that, we are similar in a lot of different ways. So we share the same purpose, right? Like we share the same passion and we share the same approach to restoration. There's a lot of shared values there, and we're only 60 kilometers apart from each other. So we share a lot of different things as well. Like we share significant genetic connectivity between our reefs. We have the same living reef system that we work in, like almost identical conditions and challenges that we face. So the more we share and the more we collaborate, the better it is for the whole region. I think Jeroen already mentioned it as well, and Trip, you also, about the same threats that we also face. We have the same challenges here on the island as you guys do over there. We have the bleaching events, we have the coral disease that arrived, declining coral cover that we see, and an increasing, oh, there's some photos there, that's nice. Increasing reef degradation that we see speeding up very fastly. So the pace of this reef decline is really increasing, and restoration must really match that speed. So what we really need is faster research, rapid testing of solutions, adaptive management, and scaling quickly what works. Because the window of opportunity that we have is getting smaller, which means the urgency is very, very real. And for that, we really need collaboration. So no single organization, I think, can do this alone. There's a lot of people, passionate people like ourselves, like Trip and his team out there trying to fight this fight, but we need tighter collaboration between NGOs like ours, but also the scientists and the reef managers, the policymakers, to really align our goals and our efforts all together to make a big change. So for me and for us, and I think for Trip as well, this collaboration is really not optional. It's really, really essential and will really benefit, innovation, shared lessons, and like prevent mistakes from being, repeated over different regions. Like we can learn so much from each other. And I'm always a big believer of collaboration and sharing specifically mistakes so others don't have to make them. Because in the end, I think when one team learns, we all benefit. And if we really approach that regional thinking, in the end, it really strengthens the local action as well. So like Trip mentioned, a good example of that is the DCRC workshop that we hosted here on Bonaire for the first time, was last year. So we brought over practitioners, and this is the photos you see on screen, what we did. So we did a lot of hands-on work. We spent a lot of time talking, discussing, sharing knowledge with each other, but also just opening up the lines of communication between each other and building these relationships with each other that we can always just reach out, ask questions, share things that we have found, so we can improve our operations. In the end, I think we're always stronger together. And that goes for corals, it goes for people, that goes for reefs in general. And I think the more we work together, the better chance we have of making this last as long as possible and giving the reef a chance to survive all the changing environmental stressors that we are facing now. So again, Trip, thank you so much for everything you do there. It's been great seeing the development happening. Proud to collaborate with you guys and happy to always answer your call. And again, congrats on the good webinar, and hopefully you'll reach your goal of was it $20,000?
Yeah, that's our stretch goal.
Yeah, easy.
Yeah. Anyway, fantastic. Thanks so much, Ernst. We really had an incredible. We appreciate your team over there. You built a great group of nice, smart, motivated people, and it was a pleasure to learn from your group. We really valued it, and I'm trying to figure out if we could ever copy it here in Curacao, but we would love to do that. Yeah. So thank you very much, and thanks for being here today. We're getting close to our hour time, but I wanted to just do a couple of thank yous for the groups here and our supporters that have got us to this point. I'm sharing. Okay, sorry to be a little bit confused. Do you see this slide here with the funders? Okay. Sorry, I have a really smart intern, as you guys can see. Yeah, perfect. I don't want to forget to thank our funders. This is a page in our new annual report. You'll see our friends, Circle of Dreams, and yeah, I'm not going to read them all. We're getting close to our time limit, but special thanks to MCB Bank for being a longtime sponsor. Lions Dive has provided a space here in Curacao, but all these groups you see have been incredibly supportive of our work. We are also proud of our partners. We have 6 really fantastic dive shop partners that work with us, and they take care of their home nursery, and it's a big family that we work together, and we're growing our research partnership. In Curacao, we're lucky to have Carmabi and Secor. They provide guidance and just, decades of experience in leadership, and we've had a new memorandum of understanding with REACT, and also working with the San Diego State on the ARC. So lots of good collaboration. Our income is growing. We have, hopefully this demonstrates that our friends and supporters believe in our work, and we can do more. We have a new employee coming on board. Our friend Chris Lippens will be here on March 6th, but that means we have to pay for another salary. So the need is great, and I think our impact is great. With two employees, we've done at least 1/5 of what Ernst 10 employees do. I don't know, there's some math there, but we do a lot with 2 people and a really dedicated intern team, thanks to the Circle of Dreams Foundation. So you can see how we have a lot of different income streams from individuals and foundations, and from Avila and Marriott and Lions Dive, and some corporate grants here, and we teach courses and sell merchandise. So we're looking for diverse streams, but we just need as much generosity as you're able to muster. Help us take advantage of Sue's generous matching grants. So thank you. This work is, I want to take you guys to see our reef and to see these growing corals. It will give you hope. And just a last picture, this is our new Reef Renewal Curacao location at Lions Dive. So this is getting built today. So keep hope alive. We're going to have our own spot, and it's real. So anyway, thanks everybody. And now if we can go into a Q&A, I'm going to let Layla set this up, and we'll see if we can answer your questions. But thanks for attending. Thanks for your great presentation, Ernst and Sue, and we're grateful for all the participants and the donations.
Yeah, so we're gonna do a little Q&A session. I saw some questions in the chat already, so I thought I would start with those, or we would start with those. Oh, okay, you didn't already answered that one. Someone asked about intern or volunteer opportunities off island. It's not something we normally do, but always feel free to reach out, and we can probably find some sort of arrangement. For example, Sarah, who manages our social media, she's living in the Netherlands, so it is possible. There was another question here asking if you can come see our reef and the work we're doing, and the answer is yes. We do scuba tours and snorkel tours of our restored reef and our nurseries. You just have to come to Curacao, and you can sign up for those tours through either Lions Dive or Ocean Encounters.
Yeah, there's a couple of specific ways you could be involved. We have a PADI distinctive specialty course that is 2 dives, and it's give you some background on coral biology, coral stressors, and teach you the procedures we use, and then we go out and clean the trees and cut down the coral, and then we rehang the coral in the trees, and then in the afternoon we outplant the coral. So you get to see all the steps in the process and learn about coral restoration, and then you can join our volunteer program. We also have a sort of a nursery dive, which is almost all that's included in the certification, but you don't outplant coral and you don't get a card from Patty, but you do get to go tour our nursery and see our outplanted corals. And then all guests at Lions Dive are given the opportunity to come on a free snorkel tour every Wednesday morning. We've had more than 800 participants in our snorkel and presentations. And this is also happening at the Marriott. They did 300 tours this year at a new nursery spot. So trying to teach a lot of people. And yeah, send us an email at info@reefrenewalcuracao.org. Okay, looking for other questions? I think we answered them.
There's some in the Q&A too. I think
Okay.
Peter might be answering them there.
Okay,
Um,
let's get one from Kamala Mostert.
oh.
She's an old friend.
Hi, Mom. In an ideal world, how many coral species would you like to have thriving in your coral farms? Is diversity of species an important feature to healthy ecosystem? I've heard mention of staghorn.
You're in.
Or do I get to take
How
this
many
one?
You take it.
Okay.
Come
So yes, the more diversity, the more resilient the ecosystem. So ideally, we would be propagating as many coral species as possible. However, there are barriers to that. The first one is permitting in Curacao. You're only allowed technically to
Staghorn, yeah.
work with staghorn. However, there's been this year, I know there are some amendments being made, and then we also work with Krabavi and some other organizations. So we are able to do some more experimental work with boulder corals and whatnot, but we can't really take that on to a larger scale until we have the permits to do so. And then the other, so heard mention of staghorn. So I guess that's short answer. The other barrier, I don't know what that noise is. The other barrier is just growth. So staghorn grows by far the fastest. Branching corals in general grow really fast. Boulder corals in a year, you can go from this to this. So it's not a very efficient coral to grow. But again, we're doing some experimentation to see if we can find ways to grow them out faster. Is that a good answer?
Yeah. Very much.
Great presentation on RRFC history and what has been accomplished, explaining more detail on how you remove the damselfish. Jeroen.
I can take this first. All right. I'm just gonna sit over here. Carrie's asking on so removing damselfish. It's always a little bit tricky because you're not allowed to fish with diving equipment, and as you know, you can still dive on lionfish because it's it's like gedoogd. You can do it, but officially, but legally you cannot. So basically, removing damselfish, there is some ways to like do this kind of in between the lines, and this is kind of like an understanding we have with the government as well. So the reason why we want to the reason why we do this damselfish removal part is to kind of see if it works, and if it works, then we can show the government that it works, and then hopefully they can give us an exemption on like actually removing them more effectively. Right now, we kind of like work between the law, and that is just with clove oil you can like stun a fish, and you can then it's basically stunned, and then you can catch it away. It's not a very effective way, but like for a small plot like that, it's doable. That is officially allowed. Using a spear is not. So I hope that answers your question a little bit. So I just continue with questions. There's so many. Thank you for your amazing work. I was recently fortunate enough to get hands-on after the Paddy Coral Restoration course with Trip and the team. How viable is outplanting at deeper depths where ocean temperatures affect the corals less? Good question. Well, I mean, corals, and especially the corals we work with, they get 95% of their food from the sun. And if you take them deeper, then less sunlight reaches them. So then there is definitely this perfect balance on like how deep do you put a coral where it still gets food, but doesn't get too warm. So definitely an option is putting them deeper when it's hotter and putting them shallower when it's colder so that it can still eat. But like fixing corals at deeper depths for like permanent, I don't see that working out too well unless you like slowly adapt to that. Okay.
What is the status of no catch zones?
What is the status of no catch zones ocean in key parts of Curacao? Well, there's none. So I think Curacao is the only country in the world where you can actually catch fish in the marine park. So that's definitely something we need to address here. I think that's a very important management issue. Unfortunately, we can't do anything about that. That is something higher up. Which one? Carrie, hello and thank you for the talk. You mentioned coral predators. I was wondering if you all have seen predation on boulder coral outplants from fish or butterfly fish and parrotfish. Also, do you have any information on utilizing fire coral in outplanted corals? Yes, butterfly fish and parrotfish, they both tend to munch on corals. Butterfly fish, they are way more gentle. They only eat like the weighted tissue, so it can really easily heal themselves. Parrotfish are more aggressive when eating corals. They do it kind of as a display of their territory. And yes, this happens a lot, especially if you outplant them, because then let's say you outplant unknowingly in a parrotfish territory and you outplant the coral there, the parrotfish is going to notice it, right? And to display itself towards the females, it will just start munching on everything, right? So we've seen this a lot where we have done a few outplants and it just starts being munched away and munched away. Surprisingly enough, there's a lot of corals that can actually like heal themselves back and actually withstand this, but this is definitely something to consider when outplanting. Usually outplanting in already a very how do you say this, high structured reef works better. If you just outplant in like a stone with nothing on it, then you have more chances of it being eaten. But yeah, good point. This is definitely something to consider when outplanting. And yeah, the fire coral indeed will provide this. So this is not a project that we have done, but a project I've been involved with. This is a project that CEQA has done, and that is indeed co-outplanting with fire corals. Fire corals don't only seem to be benefiting like structure-wise, helping the outplants, but also microbial-wise. The microbial community of fire corals seems to be like beneficial for outplant as well. So maybe there's like, this is still like an ongoing thing, but maybe there's like a thing there that indeed co-outplanting corals will benefit a lot. Let's see, another one.
Rubble piles, I'm guessing.
Do you worry that you're attracting fireworms in those piles? Yeah, yeah, of course I'm worried, right? And this is also something we are trying to address. We've been thinking about maybe attracting lobsters, like you have these little lobster houses you can do, and if you can attract lobsters, hopefully they'll eat the fireworms away. But on the other hand, fireworms are going to be a problem everywhere, anywhere, right? So that's already a factor that's there, and they tend to be less present when there's less rubble involved. So I don't know if you noticed, but like the rubble patches we created was like in the sand. Thus far, we haven't seen any traces of fireworms, but yeah, they are inevitable to get in there. Yeah, we are aware of this, and we're figuring out ways on how to deal with those. Oh, so many questions. Okay. Are there any internships available for non-students, recent grads? I've been a teacher for over 20 years and am only now shifting to ocean conservation. Would love some hands-on experience. I'm already a biologist and a dive master. Yeah, actually, most of our students that come from America, they never really come here to do an internship for their study. They just do it as personal growth. Most interns coming from the Netherlands, they come from a university. So both are valid options. And yes, we take both equally serious when we have an application round. So yeah, please apply if it ever opens. Oh yeah, just send your step. Do an open application. That honestly works best because then I can like look into your file personally. Any more questions? Let's see. Thanks again, guys. You're welcome. Oh, thank you, Stefan.
And I noticed Sue just dropped the donation link again. So just a reminder that that is live if you want to donate.
Nice. Okay, well, it looks like we're there. We're also well past an hour. So I'm just gonna look at my manager trip to see what is there anything else you want to like do, or is this is it?
I think we just want to say thank you very much. And if you
Yeah.
have any questions, you can email us at info@reefrenewalcuracao.org. And thank you so much for attending. And thanks to Ernst and Sue for your fantastic presentations. And yeah, thanks everybody for being here. Let us know how we can improve in the future.
Yeah.
And
Thank you, guys.
come dive with us. Thanks, Ernst.
You.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Oh, wait, Sue wants to say something.
Great job, guys and girls.
Too.